When a pregnant waitress is hunted down by the Mafia kingpin she tried to escape, she discovers the deadliest trap wasn't his obsession. It was believing she could survive without him. 3 months of hiding, 3 months of pretending Elena Cross had disappeared. But tonight, the most dangerous man in New York just walked through her diner door, and he knows exactly what she's been hiding beneath her apron. If you love stories of dangerous obsession and forbidden redemption, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The fluorescent lights of Mel's diner buzzed like dying insects, casting sickly yellow shadows across cracked vinyl booths and linoleum floors that had seen better decades. Elena Cross, though that wasn't the name embroidered on her stained waitress uniform, moved through the late-night shift with practiced invisibility, refilling coffee cups and clearing plates like a ghost haunting her own life. Her back ached. Everything ached these days. She pressed one hand against the small of her spine, the other balancing 3 plates of congealed meatloaf and soggy fries. The diner smelled like grease and desperation, and she'd never been more grateful for anything in her life. This place, this beautiful, horrible dive on the edge of Brooklyn, where nobody asked questions and everyone paid in cash, had become her sanctuary. 3 months. 92 days since she'd walked away from silk sheets and penthouse views, from a world of violence wrapped in Armani suits and blood-soaked power. 92 days since she'd abandoned the only man who'd ever truly terrified her. The only man she'd ever truly loved. "Lydia, table 6 needs ketchup." Mel's gravelly voice cut through her thoughts. The owner, a barrel-chested man with tattoos creeping up his neck and a past he never discussed, had hired her without checking references. She suspected he recognized a fellow runner when he saw one. "On it," she called back, her voice still carrying traces of the polish she'd tried so hard to shed. 3 months of trying to sound like she belonged here, like she'd always been nobody special. She caught her reflection in the scratched mirror behind the counter. Mousy brown hair, dyed in a gas station bathroom with cheap box color that had stained the sink, replaced the honey blonde waves that had once spilled across Egyptian cotton pillowcases. Oversized uniform shirts hid the slight swell of her belly, though she didn't know how much longer that would work. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, testament to nights spent sleeping on a lumpy mattress in a studio apartment where the radiator clanked and the neighbors screamed through paper-thin walls. She looked nothing like the woman who'd once stood beside Adrian Romano at charity galas, dripping in diamonds she'd been too naive to realize were chains. The bell above the door chimed. Elena didn't look up. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, just the usual crowd of insomniacs, night shift workers, and people with nowhere else to go. She grabbed the ketchup bottle and headed toward table 6. "Lydia, we got a suit at booth 7, Mel muttered as she passed. "Looks lost. Probably took a wrong turn from Manhattan." Something cold slithered down her spine. Suits didn't wander into Mel's diner. Not the kind from Manhattan. Not at midnight. Don't look. Just keep moving. But her body betrayed her, turning toward booth 7 like a compass finding true north. The ketchup bottle slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor with a wet splatter, red sauce exploding across the already stained linoleum, but Elena didn't see it, didn't hear it, didn't breathe. Because Adrian Romano sat in booth 7, perfectly still, perfectly composed, in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years of slinging hash. His dark hair was immaculately styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut, and his eyes, those devastating amber eyes that had once looked at her like she was his entire world, fixed on her with the intensity of a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. He didn't smile, didn't move, just watched her with that terrible, beautiful stillness that had always preceded violence, or passion, sometimes both. Elena, her real name, spoken in that voice like smoke and sin, like whiskey poured over gravel. It cut through the diner's chaos, the sizzle of the grill, the murmur of conversation, the clatter of dishes, and the entire world narrowed to just that single word. Elena. Not Lydia, not the ghost she'd been pretending to be. Her legs refused to move. Her lungs refused to fill. The man she'd run from had found her, and every carefully constructed lie crumbled to dust. "You gonna clean that up, or what?" A customer's annoyed voice barely registered. Adrian's gaze flicked to the ketchup spreading across the floor, then back to her face. One dark eyebrow arched slightly. "We need to talk." It wasn't a request. Elena's hand dropped to her stomach, an instinctive, protective gesture she immediately regretted. Adrian's eyes followed the movement, and something flickered across his face. Something that might have been pain if Adrian Romano were capable of such human emotion. "I don't know who you think I am," she said, her voice shaking, "but my name is Elena Cross, 26 years old, former art history student turned, what? Waitress?" His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You dyed your hair. It looks terrible." "Sir, if you're harassing my staff, you need to leave." Mel appeared beside her, protective and bristling. Adrian didn't even glance at him. "I'm not harassing her. I'm collecting what's mine." "I'm not yours," Elena whispered. "I was never yours." Liar. The word hung in the air between them, soft and devastating. Adrian stood, unfolding from the booth with the liquid grace of a panther. He was 6'3" of controlled violence, and everyone in the diner suddenly found their plates very interesting. He moved toward her, each step measured, deliberate. Elena backed up. "Don't." "Don't what? Don't come near you? Don't acknowledge that you ran?" He kept advancing, and she kept retreating until her back hit the counter. "Don't ask why you're working yourself to exhaustion in this shithole instead of sleeping in the bed where you belong." That bed was a cage. That bed, he said softly, dangerously, was the safest place in New York, and you left it to come here. His gaze swept the diner with barely concealed contempt. "Do you have any idea what you've put me through?" "What I've put you through." Fury finally broke through her fear. "You killed him, Adrian. You killed Marcus and then acted like it was nothing. He hurt you. He was my ex-boyfriend. He put his hands on you. He left bruises." Adrian's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "What the fuck did you expect me to do? Send him a strongly worded letter? I expected you to let me go when I asked." "Never." The word was absolute. Final. "Never, Elena. Not then. Not now. Not ever." Mel moved between them, his hand sliding towards something beneath the counter. Probably a gun. Definitely a gun. "The lady asked you to leave, friend. Time to go." Adrian's smile was pure winter. "I own this building. I own the building next door. I own half this fucking neighborhood." He pulled out his phone, pressed a single button, and spoke without breaking eye contact with Elena. "Marcus, bring the car around. She's coming home." "I'm not going anywhere with you. You're 4 months pregnant with my child. You're malnourished, exhausted, and living in a roach-infested studio with a broken lock." His jaw clenched. "So yes, Elena, you are absolutely coming with me, even if I have to carry you out of here myself." The diner went silent. Elena's world tilted. How did I know? About the baby?" Something raw and wounded flashed in his eyes. "Did you really think I wouldn't have you followed? That I wouldn't know the moment you walked into that clinic and then walked out without going through with it? That I wouldn't track every breath you've taken since you ran from me?" Tears burned her eyes. "You had no right. I had every right. You're carrying my child." He stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne, that same dark, expensive scent that used to cling to her skin. "My son or daughter is growing inside you while you poison yourself with diner food and work 16-hour shifts. Tell me, Elena, what happens when you collapse? When some bastard follows you home to that apartment with the broken lock? Who protects you then?" "I protect myself." "Like you protected yourself from Marcus?" The name was venom on his tongue. "Like you protected yourself when Valeria Conti had her people corner you in that alley last month." Elena froze. "What? You didn't know?" Adrian's laugh was bitter. "Of course you didn't, because I handled it. Like I handle everything. My men have been keeping you safe since the day you ran, even though you hate me for it." "I don't hate you." The confession slipped out before she could stop it. "No?" He reached for her, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. "Then why did you leave?" "Because I love you. Because loving you is like loving a hurricane. Because I can't be the person you need me to be." But the words stuck in her throat. Behind Adrian, the diner door opened. 3 men in dark suits entered, and Elena recognized Marcus, Adrian's head of security, built like a tank and twice as deadly. "Boss," Marcus said quietly, "we need to move. Conti's people are circling." Adrian's hand dropped from Elena's face, his entire demeanor shifting from tender to lethal in a heartbeat. "How many?" "6 that we've spotted, maybe more." "Valeria sent people here?" Elena's voice rose. "Why would she?" "Because she wants what you have." Adrian's eyes never left hers. "She wants me, and she knows the fastest way to destroy me is to hurt you." "That's insane. We're not even together anymore. Do you think that matters? You ran from me, and the entire underworld knows it. They see weakness, opportunity." His hand found hers, and she hated how right it felt. "Valeria orchestrated Marcus's death to frame you, to force me into a war that would end with me marrying her to stop the bloodshed. She expected me to trade you for peace." Elena's blood ran cold. "What?" "Your ex-boyfriend didn't die because I'm a jealous monster, though I am that too. He died because Valeria paid him to hurt you, to give me a reason to act, to create a crime she could pin on you." Adrian's grip tightened. "You were bait, Elena. The whole thing was a setup." The room spun. "You're lying." "I have proof, security footage, financial records, witness statements. I was going to tell you that night, the night you ran." Payne cracked his controlled facade. "But you were already gone." Mel cleared his throat. "Lydia, Elena, you don't have to go with him. I can call the cops." "The cops work for me," Adrian said flatly. "As does the fire marshal, who would suddenly find a dozen code violations in this establishment, the health inspector who would shut you down within the hour, and the landlord who would double your rent." He glanced at Mel. "Or you can accept the year's worth of lease payments I'm about to transfer to your account and stay the fuck out of my way." Mel looked at Elena, his expression caught between anger and resignation. "Your call, kid." Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. "They're making a move. Marcus, get everyone out. Now." "Everyone?" Marcus echoed. "Every person in this diner. Clear the block. I want eyes on every rooftop, every corner. If Valeria thinks she can take her from me here, she's even more deluded than I thought." "Wait!" Elena grabbed his arm. "You're going to evacuate an entire neighborhood because the alternative is a shootout that kills innocent people." Adrian's gaze bore into hers. "I learned from my mistakes, Elena. I learned that blood only begets more blood. So I'm getting you out of here before anyone has to die." It was the word anyone that got her. "Not before I have to kill them. Before anyone has to die." Marcus was already moving, gesturing to the other security personnel. "Let's go, people. Everyone out. There's a gas leak. Move it." Confusion erupted as customers were herded toward the exit, grumbling and protesting. Mel stood frozen, watching his diner empty. Adrian pulled out his phone again, typed something, and showed it to Mel. "There. That's 6 months' income. Take your staff somewhere safe and don't come back until I tell you it's clear." Mel stared at the screen, then at Elena. "You sure about this?" No, she wasn't sure about anything, except that Adrian had found her. And somewhere deep in her bones, beneath the fear and anger and betrayal, she felt relief. Because running was exhausting, and she was so tired. "I'm sure," she whispered. Adrian's hand found the small of her back, and he guided her toward the door. The night air hit her face, cold and sharp, carrying the scent of coming rain. A black SUV idled at the curb, surrounded by more men in suits, all of them scanning the shadows with the vigilance of soldiers in hostile territory. "In," Adrian commanded, opening the door. Elena hesitated on the threshold between her old life and whatever this was. "I can't go back to being locked up," she said. "I can't be your prisoner." "You were never my prisoner." His voice was rough. "You were my everything, and I was too fucking blind to show you the difference." "How do I know this isn't just another cage?" "You don't." He met her gaze steadily. "You have to trust me." "You killed a man." I killed a man who hurt you and was paid to do it. I'd do it again." No apology, no justification, just truth. "But I'm also about to show you something I've never shown anyone. Restraint. Mercy. Because you're right, Elena. The man you ran from was a monster, so I'm going to prove I can be more than that. A distant sound, the screech of tires, the shout of voices. Boss! Marcus's warning was sharp. Contact 2 blocks east. Adrian's entire body tensed. In one fluid motion, he lifted Elena into the SUV, climbing in after her. Drive. Now. The vehicle surged forward as the door slammed shut. Through the tinted windows, Elena watched the diner, her sanctuary, her hiding place, recede into the distance. Adrian pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. Marcus, I want non-lethal containment, rubber bullets only. Pin them down, but don't kill them. I want Valeria to get a message. Touch what's mine, and I don't respond with violence. I respond with complete annihilation of everything she values. Elena stared at him. Non-lethal? I told you, I learned. His gaze cut to her. You left because I was a monster, so I'm going to prove I can choose differently. For how long? Until the next person threatens you, threatens us? For as long as it takes to earn your trust back. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. I'm not asking you to love me, Elena. I'm asking you to let me prove that the man you fell for is still in here somewhere, underneath all the blood and darkness. The SUV raced through Brooklyn's streets, taking turns fast enough to make Elena's stomach lurch. She pressed her free hand to her belly, and Adrian's eyes tracked the movement. How far along? He asked quietly. 18 weeks. Boy or girl? I don't know. I haven't been to a real doctor. His jaw clenched. Tomorrow, first thing, I'm calling Dr. Reeves. She's the best OB in the city. Private, discreet, and she'll come to the penthouse. I don't want to go back to the penthouse. Too bad. It's the only place in this city where I can guarantee your safety, where I can guarantee our child's safety. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. You can hate me, Elena. You can scream at me, throw things, refuse to speak to me for days. But you will be safe. That is non-negotiable. You can't just decide, I can, I have, and you're too exhausted to fight me right now, so save your energy. His free hand cupped her face, tilting it toward him. When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours? When was the last time you ate a meal that wasn't leftovers from the diner? She couldn't answer, couldn't remember. Adrian's expression softened in a way that made her chest ache. Let me take care of you. That's all I'm asking. Let me feed you, keep you safe, make sure our baby has everything they need. If you still want to leave after that, He swallowed hard. I'll let you go. Liar, she whispered, throwing his earlier word back at him. His smile was sad. Yeah, I am. The SUV pulled into an underground parking garage, descending into levels of security that probably violated several building codes. Armed guards nodded as they passed, their expressions carefully neutral. Elena's heart hammered. How many people do you have working for you? Enough. That's not an answer. 200 directly, another 500 indirectly. More if you count the legitimate businesses. He helped her out of the vehicle, his hand steady on her elbow. The Romano family doesn't just run crime, Elena. We run construction, real estate, shipping, restaurants. My grandfather built an empire. My father expanded it. I've been trying to refine it. Refine it? You're a criminal. I'm a lot of things. Criminal is definitely on the list. They walked toward a private elevator, and Adrian pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner. But I'm also a businessman, a philanthropist, believe it or not, and now, apparently, a father. The elevator doors opened to reveal mirrors and soft lighting. It was absurd, riding in an elevator with the man who'd turned her life into chaos while their unborn child grew between them. Elena caught her reflection. She looked terrible, exhausted, defeated. Adrian's reflection stood behind hers, tall and powerful, and for just a moment, she saw them as they used to be. Before the fear, before the running, before she'd realized that loving Adrian Romano meant choosing between her freedom and her heart. I missed you, he said quietly. Every day, every hour. I tore this city apart looking for you. You found me. I always would have. You have to know that. The elevator climbed. You could run to the ends of the earth, Elena, and I would follow. Because you're mine. You've been mine since the moment you walked into that gallery opening and insulted my art collection. Despite everything, Elena felt her lips twitch. Your taste was terrible, all those oversized canvases with random paint splatters. I bought every piece you recommended after that. I know, I saw them at the penthouse. She'd tried not to notice, tried not to care that he'd listened to her opinions on everything from Rothko to Renaissance masters. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, 60 floors above Manhattan, with views that stretched to the horizon. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Central Park, the city lights glittering like scattered diamonds. Elena had forgotten how beautiful it was, how much she'd loved watching sunrise from that balcony, coffee in hand, feeling like she could touch the sky. Your room is ready, Adrian said. Your clothes are still there. I haven't touched anything. My room? She turned to face him. You said I wasn't a prisoner. You're not. But I'm also not assuming you want to share my bed. Pain flickered across his features. Though the offer is open, always. A woman in her 50s appeared from the kitchen. Rosa, the housekeeper who'd always snuck Elena extra cookies and asked about her day. Her face lit up when she saw Elena. Miss Elena, oh, thank... She cut herself off, glancing at Adrian. We're so glad you're home. Home. The word felt foreign and familiar all at once. Rosa prepared your favorite, Adrian said. Butternut squash soup and fresh bread. You need to eat. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her anger, her righteousness. But her stomach growled traitorously, and she was so tired of being strong. Fine. Food. Then we talk, really talk. She met Adrian's gaze. And you tell me everything. No more secrets, no more lies. If I'm going to be here, I need the truth. Done. He gestured toward the dining room. But you eat first. You look like you're about to collapse. Rosa fussed over her, settling her into a chair and immediately ladling soup into a bowl. The smell alone made Elena's eyes water. Real food, hot and fresh, and nothing like the grease-soaked meals she'd been surviving on. Adrian sat across from her, watching with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable. But instead, it felt like coming home to something she hadn't realized she'd been missing. She ate in silence, and he let her, understanding somehow that she needed this moment, needed to feel safe enough to lower her guard and just be. When the bowl was empty, and then a second bowl, Rosa brought out warm bread with honey butter, and Elena devoured that too. Better? Adrian asked softly. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Then let's talk. He leaned back, his expression open in a way she'd rarely seen. What do you want to know? Everything? Elena folded her hands over her stomach. Starting with why Valeria Conti wants me dead. Adrian's eyes darkened. Because she knows you're the only thing in this world I actually fear losing. And then, as Manhattan glittered beyond the windows and their unborn child grew between them, Adrian Romano began to speak truths he'd kept hidden for far too long, about power and politics, about enemies who wore diamonds and smiled while planning murder, about a conspiracy that had turned Elena into a pawn in a game she'd never known she was playing. And with every word, Elena realized that running had never actually been an option, because some fates couldn't be escaped, some loves couldn't be denied, and some men, dangerous, beautiful, broken men, were worth fighting for, even when fighting meant standing beside them in the darkness and refusing to let go. The city lights blurred beyond the windows as Adrian pulled a tablet from his briefcase, his movements precise and controlled. Elena watched him, her hand still cradled around the empty soup bowl, warmth spreading through her body for the first time in months. Valeria Conti, Adrian began, sliding the tablet across the table, is the youngest daughter of the Conti family. Her father ran the docks until I took them over 3 years ago. She never forgave me for that. Elena looked at the screen. A beautiful woman stared back, sharp cheekbones, calculating eyes, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or in boardrooms where empires crumbled beneath designer heels. She's stunning, Elena murmured. She's poison. Adrian's voice was flat. Her father offered her to me twice, once as a bride, once as a mistress. I refused both times. Why? His amber eyes met hers with devastating honesty. Because even before I met you, I knew what she was. A viper in Chanel, someone who sees people as chess pieces. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. You were the first person who ever looked at me and saw something other than power or fear. Elena's breath caught. I saw danger. But you stayed anyway. For 8 months you stayed. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Do you know how rare that is? Most people can't last 8 days in my world. Maybe I'm just slow to learn. Or maybe you saw what I never let anyone else see. Adrian pulled up another image, security footage time-stamped 3 months ago. Elena watched herself walking down a Brooklyn street, her newly dyed hair catching the streetlight. 2 days after you ran, Valeria's people picked up your trail. Elena's stomach dropped. How? A cabbie who recognized you. She paid him $50,000 for the information. Adrian swiped to the next image. 3 men in dark clothing, their faces partially obscured. These are her enforcers. They followed you for a week, learned your patterns, your routes, where you worked. And you just let them? I had my own people following them. Did you really think I'd let you walk around unprotected? His expression hardened. You were so focused on hiding from me that you never noticed the 4 different teams keeping watch. Mine. Valeria's. The Volkov brothers who wanted leverage against me. And briefly, a federal task force that thought you might be willing to testify. Elena's head spun. 5, actually. I'm forgetting the freelance journalist who thought your story would make a bestseller. Adrian's smile was sharp. He's been strongly discouraged from that particular project. You can't just... I can. I did. And I'll do it again. He swiped to another image, and Elena's blood turned to ice. She recognized the alley, the shortcut she'd taken home one night when the subway was running late. This is from 6 weeks ago, 2:47 a.m. You just finished a double shift. In the grainy footage, Elena watched herself hurry down the alley, exhaustion evident in her hunched shoulders. Then 3 figures emerged from the shadows, blocking her path. I don't remember this, she whispered, because you were never in actual danger. Watch. Adrian played the video. The 3 men approached her, and Elena on-screen backed up, fear written across her face. Then, before they could reach her, 2 other figures appeared, moving with professional efficiency, weapons drawn. The would-be attackers scattered like roaches in sudden light. Marcus and Luca, Adrian said quietly. They've been assigned to you since day 3. You never saw them because they're that good. Elena's hands trembled. You had me followed, protected, for 3 months. Every single day, every hour you worked, every walk home. His voice dropped. Every time you stood on that fire escape at 3 a.m. because you couldn't sleep, I knew. Every time you cried in the shower, I knew. Every time you pressed your hand to your stomach and whispered to our baby, I fucking knew, Elena. Tears burned her eyes. Then why didn't you come for you sooner? Adrian's laugh was bitter. Because you chose to leave. And I was trying to respect that choice, trying to be the man you needed me to be instead of the one I am. He stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. But when Valeria's people cornered you in that alley, when I saw how close I came to losing you both, I realized that respect was just another word for cowardice. It's not cowardice to give someone freedom. It is when that freedom gets them killed. He turned back to her, and the raw emotion on his face stole her breath. You want to know why Valeria wants you dead? Because 3 months ago, she approached me with an offer, a truce. Her hand in marriage in exchange for ending the territorial wars, for combining our family's power. Elena's chest constricted. What did you say? I told her I'd rather burn every asset I own than touch her, that I belonged to someone else, even if that someone hated me. His jaw clenched. She didn't take it well. Started asking questions, found out about you, about us. And she realized that if she could eliminate you, I'd have no reason to refuse her. That's insane. We weren't even together anymore. Do you think that matters to someone like her? She saw you as an obstacle, so she orchestrated a plan. Adrian pulled up more files, financial records, phone transcripts, damning evidence arranged in chronological order. She contacted Marcus, your ex. Elena flinched at the name. She paid him $25,000 to reconnect with you, to apologize for how things ended, to slowly work his way back into your life. Adrian's voice was cold, detached. the voice of a man reciting facts instead of describing his personal nightmare. The bruises he left on your arm that night weren't an accident of a drunken argument. They were part of the plan, evidence of abuse that Valeria intended to use. Use how? By making sure I found out, by ensuring I reacted exactly the way she predicted I would. With violence. With murder. He met her gaze. She wanted me to kill him, Elena. She counted on it. Because in our world, that kind of public execution sends a message. It starts wars. And she had already positioned herself as the peacemaker, the solution to the chaos she created. Elena's mind raced back to that night. Marcus showing up drunk at the penthouse, the fight that had escalated, Adrian's face when he'd seen the finger-shaped bruises on her skin. She'd thought it was possessiveness, jealousy. She'd never imagined it was part of someone else's chess game. You said you had proof, she managed. Adrian pulled up a video file. This is from Marcus's apartment, recorded 2 days before he contacted you. Watch. On the screen, Marcus sat across from a woman Elena now recognized as Valeria. The audio was crystal clear. 25,000 now, 25 when it's done. Valeria's voice was crisp, businesslike. All you have to do is make contact with Elena Cross. Apologize. Tell her you've changed. Then escalate one of your encounters. Nothing that will seriously hurt her, but enough to leave visible marks. And Romano will kill me for it. Marcus's voice held fear. Probably. But your family will be set for life. I'll personally ensure your mother's medical bills are covered. Your sister's college tuition paid. All of it. Valeria smiled. You're dying anyway, Marcus. The cancer is stage 4. At least this way your death means something. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. He was dying? Pancreatic cancer. 6 months to live, maybe less. Adrian's expression was granite. She found a dead man and convinced him to play one last role. He didn't care about you, Elena. He cared about securing his family's future. The betrayal cut deeper than she'd expected. And you killed him anyway. I did. No apology, no justification. I walked into his apartment, and he was waiting for me. Had the whole confession ready, told me everything Valeria had planned, probably hoping I'd show mercy. Adrian's eyes were distant, remembering. I listened to every word. Then I put 2 bullets in his chest. Elena stood on shaking legs. How is that different from what she wanted? You still killed him. You still played right into her hands. Because I didn't do it publicly. Didn't make it a spectacle. And I made damn sure there was no evidence connecting you to his death. Adrian's voice softened. Then I went to war with Valeria quietly. Started dismantling her operations piece by piece. Cutting off her suppliers, turning her allies, draining her accounts. She wanted a dramatic gang war. I gave her economic assassination. That's still violence, still crime, I know. He moved closer, and she could smell his cologne, could feel the heat radiating from his body. But it was controlled violence, strategic, the kind that doesn't spill civilian blood or make headlines. I learned that from you. From me? You always said I had a choice. That power didn't have to mean brutality. His hand cupped her face with heartbreaking gentleness. So I chose differently. For you. Even when you weren't there to see it. Elena wanted to pull away, wanted to maintain her anger, her moral high ground. But she was exhausted and pregnant, and standing in front of the only man who'd ever looked at her like she was worth rewriting the rules for. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. That night before I ran, why didn't you explain about Valeria, about Marcus being paid? I tried. I came to your room with all of this evidence, ready to lay it out. But you were already packing. Pain cracked his voice. And you looked at me with such fear, such disgust. I realized that nothing I said would matter. You'd already decided I was a monster. You killed someone. I did. And I'd do it again to protect you. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. That's what you don't understand, Elena. I'm not a good man trying to be better. I'm a bad man trying to be good enough for you. There's a difference. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Adrian glanced at it, his expression darkening. Valeria knows you're here. She's requesting a meeting. Absolutely not. Not with you. With me. He showed her the message. Tomorrow night, neutral ground. She wants to discuss terms. What kind of terms? The kind where she pretends she's willing to back off if I give her what she wants. Adrian's smile was predatory. But I'm not giving her a damn thing. I'm going to end this, permanently. Fear spiked through Elena's chest. You mean kill her? I mean destroy her. There's a difference. He pulled up another file, this one thick with documentation. Valeria built her power on her father's name and old alliances. But she's been sloppy, greedy. I have evidence of embezzlement from the Conti family accounts, proof that she's been skimming from her own father's operations. The old man is traditional. Family loyalty is everything. If he finds out his favorite daughter has been robbing him blind, he'll disown her, Elena finished. At minimum. At maximum, he'll do what our world does to thieves and traitors. Adrian's eyes were cold. She'll lose everything. Her name, her protection, her power. She'll become nobody. And then she'll leave the city or die trying to stay. Either way, she'll never threaten you again. It was brutal, calculating, absolutely ruthless. It was also probably the most merciful thing Adrian could do. You're not going to kill her, Elena said slowly, testing the words. No, I'm going to make her wish I had. He set the phone down. Is that better? Does that make me less of a monster in your eyes? I don't know what it makes you. Elena pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling the slight flutter that might have been movement or might have been her imagination. But I know I don't want our child growing up in a world where his father's first instinct is murder. Then I'll learn a different instinct. For you. For them. Adrian's hand covered hers, both of them touching the place where their baby grew. I can't promise to be perfect, Elena. I can't promise I won't make choices that horrify you. But I can promise that I'll always choose the option with the least blood, the most mercy, even when every instinct I have screams for violence. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something, a start. I want to see everything, Elena said. Every file, every piece of evidence. If I'm going to be here, if I'm going to let you protect our child, I need to know exactly what world I'm bringing them into. Done. Adrian gestured toward his study. It's all there. Financial records, security reports, surveillance footage, everything I've done for the last 3 months. They moved to the study, a room Elena remembered well, with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and massive mahogany desk. Adrian had spent countless nights here, managing his empire while she curled up in the leather chair by the window, reading. Now he pulled up file after file, walking her through the intricate web of crime and commerce that made up his world. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't try to make himself look noble, just showed her the raw truth of what it meant to be Adrian Romano. And somewhere around 3 a.m., as he explained how he'd rerouted shipments to avoid a federal raid while simultaneously ensuring no drugs touched his docks, Elena realized something terrifying. She still loved him. Not despite the darkness, but with full knowledge of it. She loved the man who held a city in his grip and chose to use that grip to protect instead of destroy. Who could order violence with one breath and tenderness with the next? Who looked at her like she was the only light in his carefully controlled chaos? I need to sleep, she said abruptly, standing on unsteady feet. Adrian rose immediately. I'll show you to your room. My old room? Unless you want to stay somewhere else. His expression was carefully neutral, but she saw the hope buried beneath. They walked down the familiar hallway, past the gallery wall where the art she'd chosen still hung. Her room was exactly as she'd left it. The bed made with fresh linens, her books still on the nightstand, even the half-empty bottle of lotion on the dresser. You really didn't touch anything, she whispered. I told Rosa to keep it ready, in case you came back. Adrian stood in the doorway, not entering uninvited. There are new clothes in the closet. Maternity clothes. I had them brought in last month when I realized you were starting to show. Elena's throat tightened. Last month? But you didn't come for me until tonight. I was waiting for the right moment, for proof that I could be what you needed. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture uncharacteristically uncertain. Clearly, I miscalculated. You didn't miscalculate. Valeria forced your hand. Maybe. Or maybe I was just too afraid to face you. He met her gaze. You terrify me, Elena. You always have. Because you're the only person who could actually destroy me. I don't have that kind of power. You have all of it. He stepped back, giving her space. Get some rest. Dr. Reeves will be here at 10 a.m. I'll make sure you're not disturbed before then. He started to close the door, and Elena heard herself say, Adrian? He paused. Yes? Thank you for keeping me safe, even when I didn't know it. The smile that crossed his face was genuine, unguarded. Always, Elena, even when you hate me for it. The door closed softly, and Elena was alone in a room that felt like stepping back in time. She showered in the attached bathroom, using the expensive products she'd almost forgotten existed. Then she slipped into one of the silk nightgowns hanging in the closet, new, but in the style she preferred. Adrian had paid attention to everything. She lay in bed, her hand on her stomach, and felt the tears come. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of being seen. Known. Protected by someone who'd reorganized his entire world around keeping her safe. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like finally being able to breathe. Morning arrived too quickly, sunlight streaming through windows that overlook Manhattan in all its chaotic glory. Elena woke to the smell of coffee and fresh pastries and found a tray waiting outside her door with a note in Adrian's precise handwriting. Breakfast. Eat all of it. The baby needs fuel. Hey! She smiled despite herself and carried the tray inside. Croissants, fresh fruit, Greek yogurt with honey, all her favorites. No greasy diner food, no questionable leftovers, just simple, perfect nourishment. Rosa appeared at 9:30 with more food. Apparently Adrian's idea of eat all of it involved multiple courses, and helped Elena into one of the new maternity dresses. Soft blue cotton that actually fit, that didn't require safety pins or creative layering. He was so worried about you, Miss Elena, Rosa said as she fussed with the dress. He barely slept, barely ate, just worked and watched those security feeds like a man possessed. I know, Elena murmured. Do you? Do you know he fired 3 of his men for losing sight of you for 40 minutes when you took a different subway route? That he personally vetted every person who worked at that diner to make sure none of them would hurt you? Rosa's eyes were fierce. That boy loves you more than life itself. Whatever mistakes he's made, that's the truth. Before Elena could respond, the doorbell chimed, an elegant sound that echoed through the penthouse. Voices in the foyer, then Adrian appeared in her doorway, looking unfairly perfect in charcoal slacks and a black shirt rolled to his elbows. Dr. Reeves is here. Are you ready? No, she wasn't ready for any of this. But their baby deserved proper medical care, and Elena had been surviving on prenatal vitamins from the pharmacy and hope. Ready? She lied. Dr. Reeves was a warm woman in her 50s with kind eyes and capable hands. She set up in one of the guest rooms that Adrian had apparently converted into a medical suite, complete with an ultrasound machine, examination table, and enough equipment to run a small clinic. Mr. Romano is very thorough, Dr. Reeves said with a knowing smile. Shall we see how the baby is doing? Elena lay back on the table, her heart hammering. Adrian stood beside her, his hand finding hers without hesitation. Are you the father? Dr. Reeves asked. Yes, Adrian said, his voice rough with emotion. First child? Yes. Congratulations to you both. Dr. Reeves spread the cold gel on Elena's stomach. Let's take a look. The ultrasound screen flickered to life, and suddenly there was a shape, a tiny human, curled and perfect, floating in its own small universe. There's your baby, Dr. Reeves said softly. Measuring right on track for 18 weeks. Good, strong heartbeat. Hear that? The sound filled the room, a rapid, rhythmic whooshing that was the most beautiful thing Elena had ever heard. Adrian's hand tightened on hers. When she glanced at him, his eyes were fixed on the screen with an intensity that bordered on reverence. And when Dr. Reeves asked if they wanted to know the sex, he looked at Elena with a silent question. Yes, Elena whispered. We want to know. Dr. Reeves moved the wand, studying the screen. Congratulations, you're having a boy. A son. She was carrying Adrian Romano's son. Elena watched Adrian's face crumble and rebuild in the space of a heartbeat. Watched him press his free hand to his mouth, shoulders shaking with silent emotion. The most dangerous man in New York, undone by the sight of his child on a grainy screen. A boy, he managed, his voice wrecked. A healthy boy, Dr. Reeves confirmed. All measurements look good. Elena, you're a bit underweight, and I'd like to see you eating more regularly, but overall the baby is thriving. The examination continued: blood pressure, weight, dietary recommendations. Adrian absorbed every word like gospel, his hand never leaving Elena's. When Dr. Reeves finally left with instructions to return in 2 weeks, they sat in silence in the medical room, the printed ultrasound photos between them. Lucian, Adrian said quietly. I want to name him Lucian, after my grandfather, the one who built the legitimate businesses, who believed family was more than blood. Elena picked up one of the photos, studying the small profile of their son. Lucian Romano. Lucian Cross Romano, if you want. Adrian's gaze was steady. He should have your name too, your strength. You think hyphenating a crime boss's son is a good idea? I think he should know he comes from 2 families, 2 legacies, that he's more than just my heir. Adrian touched the photo with careful fingers. I don't want him to be me, Elena. I want him to be better, like you. I'm not better, I'm just different. You're everything I'm not. Gentle, moral, good. He stood, pulling her up with him. That's why I need you. Why he needs you. To balance the darkness with light. Elena let him lead her back to the main living area, where Rosa had laid out lunch. A spread of healthy options that made her diner meals look like the punishment they'd been. They ate in comfortable silence, and Elena realized this was new. Before, their relationship had been passion and intensity, late nights and heated arguments that ended in tangled sheets. Now it was quieter, steadier, like maybe they were finally learning how to just be together. Tell me about the meeting with Valeria, Elena said finally. What happens tomorrow night? Adrian's expression hardened. I present her with the evidence. Give her a choice. Leave the city quietly, or I send everything to her father and let him handle it. And if she refuses? She won't. She's smart enough to know when she's beaten. He paused. But if she does, I'll handle it, without killing her. I promised you mercy, and I meant it. I want to be there. Absolutely not. She targeted me, Adrian, used me as a pawn. I deserve to look her in the eye and watch her lose. Elena's voice was steel. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you I'm coming. Adrian studied her for a long moment, and she saw the war in his eyes, the instinct to protect versus the need to respect her choice. Finally, he nodded. You stay by my side. You don't engage unless I say it's safe. And if anything goes wrong, Marcus gets you out immediately. Those are my terms. Deal. They spent the afternoon planning, a strange domestic kind of warfare preparation. Adrian showed her the venue, a high-end restaurant he owned where every employee was on his payroll and every exit was covered. He walked her through contingencies, explained the security measures, made her memorize emergency protocols. You really think she'd try something violent? Elena asked. I think desperate people do desperate things, and I'm about to make her very desperate. His hand found the small of her back, a gesture that was becoming familiar again. But I won't let her touch you. I swear it. That night, Elena stood on the balcony she'd once loved, watching the city breathe and pulse 60 floors below. Adrian found her there, carrying a blanket against the spring chill. You should be resting, he said, draping it over her shoulders. I've been resting for 3 months. I'm tired of being tired. She leaned into his warmth. Tell me something true, Adrian, something you've never told anyone. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was terrified the night you left. Not angry, terrified. Because I realized I'd built my entire world around you, and without you, none of it mattered. Elena's breath caught. Every business deal, every territory, every power play. I told myself it was about legacy, about honor. But really, it was about building something worthy of you, something that could maybe balance the scales of who I am. His arms circled her from behind, his hands coming to rest on her stomach. And then you ran, and I understood that nothing I built would ever be enough if you weren't there to see it. I ran because I was scared, she admitted, because loving you felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, and I couldn't tell if you were going to catch me or push me. I'll always catch you, Elena, even when you don't want me to. He pressed his lips to her temple. That's my promise, to you and to him. I'll catch you both, for as long as you'll let me. She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd turned her life into beautiful chaos. I don't know if I can do this. Be with you. Raise a child in your world. I know. But I don't know if I can walk away either. I know that too. His hand cupped her face. So stay. Let me prove that the world I'm building is one worth living in, one where our son can grow up safe and loved and free to choose his own path. And if I can't believe that, if I never can, pain flickered across his features. Then I'll let you go. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you and Lucian want for nothing, even if it destroys me. Elena searched his face for lies and found only devastating truth. This man who commanded empires would break himself apart to keep her whole. Tomorrow, she whispered. We deal with Valeria tomorrow. Then we figure out the rest. Tomorrow, he agreed. They stood wrapped together as the city glittered and the night deepened, two people learning how to build something real from the wreckage of fear and power and impossible love. And somewhere inside her, Lucian grew, oblivious to the wars being fought in his name, the empires being reshaped for his future. Tomorrow, Elena would face the woman who'd tried to destroy her. Tomorrow, she would stand beside Adrian and watch justice served cold and calculated. But tonight, she let herself be held by the only man who'd ever seen past her fear to the strength beneath. The only man worth fighting for, even when fighting meant choosing to stay. The morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Elena woke to find Adrian already gone from the penthouse, though a note on her breakfast tray informed her he was meeting with his security team to finalize preparations for the evening. Rosa hovered more than usual, her maternal instincts in overdrive as she insisted Elena eat every bite of the omelet, the toast, the fresh berries arranged like an edible bouquet. You need your strength, Miss Elena, Rosa said, pouring orange juice with the solemnity of someone preparing a soldier for battle. Today is important. Elena wanted to argue that it was just a meeting, just a conversation between criminals in expensive clothes. But the knot in her stomach told a different story. Today she would face the woman who'd orchestrated her nightmare, who'd turned her ex-boyfriend into a sacrifice, and Elena herself into bait. Today, she would look into the eyes of someone who saw human lives as currency to be spent. By noon, Adrian returned with Marcus and two other men Elena recognized from the Brooklyn diner rescue. They moved through the penthouse with military precision, checking sightlines, testing communications equipment, treating the evening's confrontation like a tactical operation. Is all this really necessary? Elena asked as Marcus demonstrated a panic button disguised as a bracelet. I thought this was supposed to be a civil meeting. Civil and safe are two different things, Adrian said, his tone brooking no argument. He was different today, harder, colder, every inch the crime lord instead of the tender father-to-be who'd wept at ultrasound images. Valeria is cornered. That makes her dangerous. I can handle dangerous. I know you can. That's not the point. He crossed to her, his hands settling on her shoulders with familiar weight. The point is, you shouldn't have to. Not while you're carrying our son. Our son who's going to grow up in this world, whether I like it or not, Elena countered. I need to see it, Adrian, all of it. The pretty parts and the ugly parts. How else am I supposed to decide if I can live with it? His jaw clenched, but he nodded. Fair enough. But you wear the bracelet. Non-negotiable. She let him fasten it around her wrist. Platinum and diamonds that probably cost more than her entire year at the diner. It was beautiful and felt like a shackle, but she understood the necessity. In Adrian's world, even jewelry was armor. The afternoon crawled past with excruciating slowness. Elena tried to read, to nap, to do anything that would quiet the anxiety churning in her chest. Instead, she found herself in Adrian's study, pulling up the files he'd shown her the night before. The evidence against Valeria was damning. Years of embezzlement documented in spreadsheets, offshore accounts traced through layers of corporate shells, witness statements from people she'd betrayed. Planning to memorize it? Adrian's voice came from the doorway. Elena didn't turn from the screen. Planning to understand it. If I'm going to watch you destroy someone's life, I want to know exactly why. Second thoughts? Constant thoughts. Nothing about this is simple. She closed the laptop and faced him. She's a criminal. She deserves consequences. But so are you, Adrian. The difference is you have the power to deliver those consequences, and she doesn't. That's not justice. That's just power. You're right. He moved into the room, perching on the edge of his desk. It's not justice. It's survival. In my world, you either have power or you're subject to someone else's. There's no middle ground. There should be. Maybe. But wishing the world were different doesn't make it so. His eyes softened. You think I don't know I'm a hypocrite? That I punish people for crimes I commit myself? I know exactly what I am, Elena. The question is whether you can live with it. It was the same question that had driven her away 3 months ago, and she still didn't have an answer. But now there was Lucian to consider, their son, who would inherit this empire of moral compromise and strategic violence. What kind of mother would she be if she didn't at least try to understand the world he'd be born into? I don't know if I can live with it, she said honestly, but I'm here. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. Adrian stood, closing the distance between them. Whatever happens tonight, whatever you see, remember that I'm doing this for us, for our family. Not for power or revenge, but because the only way to keep you both safe is to eliminate the threats. By ruining her instead of killing her. Yes, by showing mercy that still has teeth. His hand found hers. It's the best I can offer, Elena. The best version of myself I know how to be. She squeezed his fingers, acknowledging the truth in his words. Adrian Romano would never be a good man in any traditional sense, but maybe, just maybe, he could be a good man for her. A good father for their son. That would have to be enough. At 6 o'clock, Rosa helped Elena dress for the evening. Not the simple maternity dress from the morning, but something more strategic. A black sheath that somehow managed to be both elegant and concealing, hiding her pregnancy while making her look like she belonged in Adrian's world. Rosa styled her hair into a sleek twist, applied makeup with an artist's precision, and stepped back with approval. Beautiful, Rosa declared. You look like a queen. Elena studied her reflection and saw a stranger, polished, powerful, nothing like the exhausted waitress who'd slung hash for survival. This woman looked like she could stand beside Adrian Romano and hold her own. The transformation was unsettling and necessary in equal measure. Adrian was waiting in the foyer, devastating in a black suit that probably cost more than a luxury car. His eyes darkened when he saw her, heat and possession flickering across his face before he controlled it. You look incredible, he said, his voice rough. I look like armor. Sometimes that's the same thing. He offered his arm. Ready? No. She would never be ready for this. But Elena took his arm anyway, letting him guide her into the private elevator that would carry them down to the waiting SUV. The restaurant was in Tribeca, an exclusive establishment where reservations required months of waiting or the right last name. Adrian had the right last name. He owned the building, the business, and probably half the block. They entered through a private entrance, bypassing the main dining room entirely, and were led to a private section on the top floor where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River. The room was elegant, mahogany and leather, crystal and candlelight. A single table sat in the center, set for 3. Marcus and his team had already secured the perimeter, their presence invisible but omnipresent. She's not here yet, Marcus reported. ETA 5 minutes. Adrian nodded, guiding Elena to one of the chairs. Remember, you don't speak unless spoken to directly. If anything feels wrong, you signal me immediately. I'm not a child, Adrian. No, you're the woman carrying my child. There's a difference. His hand brushed her cheek. I can't lose you, Elena. I won't survive it. Before she could respond, Marcus's earpiece crackled. Target approaching. The room's energy shifted, tension coiling like a living thing. Adrian's expression went cold and remote, the tender father disappearing behind the mask of a crime lord. He stood behind Elena's chair, one hand resting possessively on her shoulder. The door opened. Valeria Conti walked in like she owned the world. She was even more striking in person than in photographs. Tall and lean in a white pantsuit that screamed power, her dark hair swept into an intricate updo, diamonds glittering at her throat and wrists. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, who'd built her identity on being untouchable. Her gaze swept the room, lingered on Adrian, then dropped to Elena with undisguised contempt. So this is the little waitress who's caused so much trouble, Valeria said, her voice carrying the faint trace of an Italian accent. I expected someone more, Impressive. Valeria. Adrian's tone was ice. Sit. Not even a greeting? How uncivilized. But she sat, crossing her legs with calculated grace. Though I suppose civility is too much to expect from someone who brings his pregnant mistress to a business meeting. She's not my mistress. She's the mother of my son. Adrian's hand tightened on Elena's shoulder. And you will speak to her with respect, or this conversation ends now. Valeria's smile was sharp. Touchy. I heard you'd gone soft, but I didn't believe it. Adrian Romano, the man who once hung a traitor from the Brooklyn Bridge, reduced to playing house with a girl who dyes her hair in gas station bathrooms. Elena felt the anger spike through Adrian's touch, but his voice remained controlled. You requested this meeting, Valeria. I suggest you get to the point. Very well. Valeria leaned back, studying them like specimens under glass. I want you to call off your vendetta. Stop interfering with my operations. Stop turning my suppliers. Stop poisoning my father against me. In return, I'll leave your little family alone. No. No? Valeria's eyebrow arched. You haven't even heard my offer. Because your offer is irrelevant. You targeted Elena, orchestrated Marcus's death, used my life as a chessboard for your ambitions. Adrian's voice was deadly soft. There's no offer you could make that would stop what's coming. And what's coming exactly? Another gang war? More bloodshed? Valeria's laugh was brittle. Please, we both know you've gone soft. You can't afford a war. Not with a baby on the way. Not with her to protect. You're right. I can't afford a war. Adrian released Elena's shoulder and moved around the table, pulling out a tablet. Which is why I'm not starting one. I'm ending you, completely, without firing a single shot. He set the tablet in front of Valeria. Her expression remained cool, but Elena saw the moment fear flickered in her eyes as she read the screen. $18 million, Adrian said conversationally. That's how much you've embezzled from your father's accounts over the last 5 years. $18 million that you've funneled through offshore accounts, shell corporations, and strategic investments that somehow only benefit you. Valeria's face paled. That's a lie. It's meticulously documented truth. Every transaction traced, every account linked, every penny accounted for. Adrian pulled up another file. Then there's the matter of the shipment you redirected last month. The one that was supposed to go to your father's warehouses, but somehow ended up in your private storage facility in Queens. 40 kilos of heroin that officially doesn't exist. You can't prove, I can prove everything, because you were arrogant enough to think your father would never question his favorite daughter, that you could steal from the family and no one would notice. Adrian's smile was vicious. I noticed, and I've spent 3 months building a case that even your father can't ignore. Elena watched Valeria's composure crack, piece by careful piece. This was Adrian at his most dangerous, not violent, not brutal, but ruthlessly efficient. He wasn't destroying her body. He was destroying her identity, her power, everything she'd built her life on. What do you want? Valeria's voice was tight. I want you gone, out of the city within 48 hours. You forfeit all territory, all operations, all claims to the Conti name. Adrian leaned forward. You disappear, Valeria. Completely. And if I ever hear you've come within 100 miles of Elena or my son, I send everything I have to your father and let him handle you the old-fashioned way. You're asking me to give up everything. I'm giving you the chance to keep your life. That's more mercy than you showed Elena when you turned her into bait. More mercy than you showed Marcus when you paid him to die for your ambitions. Adrian's eyes were pitiless. Take the deal, Valeria. It's the only one you're getting. Valeria's gaze cut to Elena, and the hatred there was palpable. This is all your fault. If you just stayed gone, if you'd just been smart enough to stay away from him, if Elena had stayed away, you'd still be a thief stealing from your own family, Adrian interrupted. She didn't make you greedy. She didn't make you reckless. That's all you. She made you weak. She made me careful. There's a difference. Adrian straightened. 48 hours, Valeria. After that, I make a phone call to your father, and we both know how that ends. For a long moment, Elena thought Valeria might refuse, might choose pride over survival, but then she stood, her movements jerky with barely controlled rage. This isn't over, Valeria hissed. Yes, it is. Adrian's voice was final. You just haven't accepted it yet. Valeria stalked toward the door, then paused, looking back at Elena. You think you've won? That you get the fairy tale ending with the monster? Her laugh was ugly. You're just the current favorite, sweetheart. Wait until the baby's born, until you're no longer useful. Then you'll see what he really is. Elena felt Adrian tense beside her, but she spoke before he could. I already know what he is. A man who keeps his promises. A man who chose mercy over murder because I asked him to. A man who's building something better for our son. She met Valeria's gaze steadily. You're right that I'm not special. I'm just the one who stayed, who chose to see the person instead of the power. Maybe if you'd done that instead of scheming and stealing, you'd have something real instead of nothing. Valeria's face contorted with fury, but Marcus stepped forward, his bulk filling the doorway. Time to go, Ms. Conti. She left with her head high, but Elena saw the defeat in her shoulders, the knowledge that she'd been outmaneuvered by someone she'd dismissed as irrelevant. The door closed behind her, and the room's tension released like a breaking wave. Adrian moved immediately to Elena, his hands framing her face. Are you all right? Did she hurt you? I'm fine, better than fine. Elena's heart was racing, adrenaline singing through her veins. Is it really over? Just like that? Just like that. She'll run. She has no choice. Adrian pressed his forehead to hers. By tomorrow night, she'll be on a plane to somewhere far away and we'll never have to think about her again. And if she doesn't leave? Then her father receives a very detailed package, and nature takes its course. Adrian's smile was grim. But she'll leave. Valeria's many things, but she's not stupid. She knows when she's beaten. Marcus appeared at Adrian's shoulder. Boss, we should move, just in case she tries something desperate. Adrian nodded, already guiding Elena toward the exit. They moved through the restaurant with Marcus and his team forming a protective wall around them, out into the night where two SUVs waited with engines running. The ride back to the penthouse was silent, Elena's mind spinning with everything she'd witnessed. Valeria's hatred, Adrian's cold precision, the way he'd dismantled someone's entire existence without raising his voice or his fists. It was power on a scale Elena couldn't fully comprehend, and it terrified her. It also, in some dark corner of her heart, satisfied her. Back at the penthouse, Adrian dismissed the security team and locked the door behind them. The silence felt enormous, weighted with unspoken thoughts and racing hearts. You were incredible, Adrian said finally. What you said to her was true. All of it. Elena moved to the windows, looking out at the city that never stopped glittering. I'm not naive enough to think this makes everything okay, that one act of mercy erases everything else you've done. I know. But it's something, a start. She turned to face him. You proved you could choose differently. That when I asked for mercy, you found a way to deliver it without compromising our safety. That matters, Adrian, more than you know. He crossed to her, and Elena let him pull her into his arms. They stood wrapped together, two people learning how to build trust from the wreckage of fear and violence. I meant what I said, Elena whispered, about staying, about choosing to see you instead of just the power. But I need you to keep choosing this path, this version of yourself who controls the violence instead of being controlled by it. I will, for you, for Lucian. Adrian's hand found her stomach. For the family we're building. Even when it's hard? Even when every instinct tells you to burn it all down? Especially then. His lips brushed her temple. You make me want to be better, Elena. You and our son. I won't waste that gift. They moved to the bedroom together, not her old room, but Adrian's. The master suite she'd once shared with him in those early days when everything had been passion and possibility. The bed was the same, massive and draped in black silk, but everything else felt different, softer, less like a cage and more like a sanctuary. Adrian helped her out of the armor dress, his hands gentle and reverent. You're showing more, he murmured, his palms spreading across the curve of her belly. I can't believe there's a whole person growing in there. Neither can I. Sometimes I wake up and forget, and then I feel him move and remember. Elena covered his hand with hers. He's going to have your eyes. I already know it. Your kindness, though, Your ability to see good in broken things. Adrian knelt, pressing his lips to her stomach. Be better than me, little one. Be like your mother. Elena's throat tightened. You're going to be a good father. I'm going to try. That's all I can promise. He stood, pulling her close. Stay with me tonight. Let me hold you both. It wasn't a demand. It was a request, vulnerable and honest. Elena nodded, and they climbed into bed together, bodies finding familiar positions. Her back to his front, his arm draped protectively over her stomach, his breath warm against her neck. It felt like coming home to something she'd been missing without realizing it. Thank you, Adrian whispered in the darkness, for giving me another chance, for letting me prove I can be more than the monster you ran from. Thank you for becoming someone worth staying for, Elena replied. They slept wrapped in each other, the city breathing beyond their windows. While somewhere in the night, Valeria Conti began the process of disappearing. By morning, reports would confirm her departure. A private plane to Milan, a hasty exit that left her operations in shambles and her father's empire intact. But that was tomorrow's confirmation. Tonight, Elena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd turned a corner. That the man holding her had truly chosen mercy over murder, restraint over revenge. That the world they were building for Lucian might actually be one worth living in. The next days unfolded with surprising normalcy. Dr. Reeves returned for a follow-up appointment, declaring both Elena and the baby healthy and thriving. Adrian threw himself into preparations for Lucian's arrival with an intensity that would have been comical if it weren't so touching, researching cribs and car seats, interviewing potential nannies with the thoroughness of someone vetting national security threats, converting an entire wing of the penthouse into a nursery. You know we have 4 months, right? Elena said, watching him compare stroller specifications with the focus of a military strategist. 4 months to make sure everything is perfect. That's not nearly enough time. Adrian didn't look up from his laptop. Did you know some car seats have a 37% higher safety rating than others? 37%, Elena. That could be the difference between our son being absolutely safe and completely safe? She crossed to him, gently closing the laptop. He's going to be fine, Adrian. You're going to make sure of it. You always do. His hands found her waist, pulling her into the space between his legs. I just want to get it right. All of it. I've made so many wrong choices, but this, him, I need to get it right. You will. We will. Elena kissed his forehead. Together, Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. Boss, you have a call. Angelo Conti. Adrian's entire demeanor shifted. Angelo Conti, Valeria's father, the old guard patriarch who'd built an empire on loyalty and blood. Elena felt Adrian's buttons tighten on her waist. What does he want? Adrian's voice was controlled. To thank you, apparently, and to discuss terms. Marcus's lips twitched. Says it's regarding his daughter's early retirement. Adrian stood but kept Elena close. Put him through to my study. And Marcus? Thank you for everything these past months. Just doing my job, boss. But Marcus's expression softened as his gaze landed on Elena. Glad you're home, Miss Elena. After Marcus left, Adrian guided Elena toward his study. You don't have to be there for this. I want to be. If we're doing this together, then I need to see all of it, even the parts that make me uncomfortable. He studied her face, then nodded. Together, then. In the study, Adrian activated the video call. Angelo Conti's weathered face filled the screen, an old man with sharp eyes, and the bearing of someone who'd commanded respect for decades. Adrian, Angelo's voice was gravelly, and this must be Elena. I've heard much about you, young lady. Mr. Conti, Elena managed, her voice steady despite her racing heart. My daughter has left the country, Angelo said without preamble. She will not be returning. I want you to know that I appreciate your discretion in this matter. Adrian's expression remained neutral. I assume you've seen the evidence. I have, and I am deeply ashamed that my own blood would betray the family in such a manner. Angelo's jaw clenched. Valeria has been removed from all business operations. Her accounts have been frozen. She will live, but she will live with nothing. That seems fair, Adrian said carefully. It is more than fair. It is mercy I would not have shown to anyone else's child. Angelo's gaze sharpened. You could have started a war, Adrian. Could have used my daughter's crimes to justify taking everything I've built. Instead, you gave me the truth and let me handle it. Why? Adrian's hand found Elena's. Because I'm building something different now. A legacy that my son can be proud of. That means choosing stability over chaos, peace over war. A son. Angelo's expression softened fractionally. Congratulations. There's nothing more important than family, nothing worth more protecting. I'm learning that. See that you remember it. The city is changing, Adrian. The old ways are dying. Men like us, we adapt or we disappear. Angelo paused. I'm retiring, effective immediately. My nephew will take over operations and he's been instructed to work with you, not against you. Consider it a debt paid. Elena felt the weight of those words. One conversation, and Adrian had gained an ally instead of an enemy, all because he'd chosen restraint over revenge. I appreciate your trust, Angelo. Don't make me regret it. Angelo's gaze cut to Elena. Take care of him, young lady. Men like Adrian, they need someone to remind them they're human, to give them a reason to choose mercy over murder. I will, Elena promised. The call ended, leaving them in silence. Did that really just happen? Elena asked. It did. Angelo Conti just handed me half the city's operations because I gave him the truth instead of a war. Adrian pulled her into his arms. This is what you've done to me, Elena. Made me see that power doesn't always mean violence, that sometimes the strongest choice is the hardest one. She pressed her face to his chest, breathing in his scent. I'm proud of you. Don't be, not yet. His voice was rough. I'm still learning how to be this version of myself, how to control the darkness instead of feeding it. Some days I want to burn the world down just to keep you safe. But you don't. That's what matters. Elena looked up at him. You choose differently, every time. The weeks that followed brought a rhythm to their lives that felt almost domestic. Elena's pregnancy progressed beautifully, her body finally healthy and nourished. Adrian attended every doctor's appointment, asked 1,000 questions, and documented everything with the dedication of someone creating a sacred record. They took walks through Central Park despite Marcus's protests, Adrian's hand never leaving the small of her back. They argued about paint colors for the nursery. Elena wanted soft blues and grays. Adrian wanted something brighter, more alive. They compromised on a combination that somehow worked perfectly. At night, they lay in bed and felt Lucian kick. Adrian's hand splayed across her stomach with wonder written across his face. He talked to their son, telling him stories about the city beyond the windows, about the empire he would inherit, about the mother who was teaching his father how to be better. You're going to love her more than me, Adrian said one night, his lips pressed to Elena's belly. And that's exactly how it should be. She's the best of both of us. He'll love you too, Elena assured him, because you're going to show him that strength doesn't mean cruelty, that power can be used to protect instead of destroy. I hope so. Adrian's eyes were distant. My father never showed me that. Never showed me anything except how to take what I wanted and destroy what threatened me. I won't do that to Lucian. He'll have choices I never did. Elena threaded her fingers through his hair. He'll have both of us. That's all he needs. As spring deepened into summer, Elena found herself settling into Adrian's world in ways that surprised her. She attended business dinners where criminals wore tuxedos and discussed territory over 30-year scotch. She learned to read the subtle power dynamics, to understand when Adrian's silence meant danger and when it meant calculation. And slowly, inevitably, she fell back in love with him. Not the desperate, all-consuming passion of before, but something deeper, more sustainable, built on trust earned through 1,000 small choices, through mercy given when violence would have been easier, through a man who was learning to control his darkness instead of being consumed by it. I love you, she said one evening, the words surprising them both. They were on the balcony, watching sunset paint the city gold and rose. Adrian turned to her, his eyes wide with something that looked like fear. Don't say that if you don't mean it, he said roughly. Don't give me hope just to take it away again. I mean it. I love you, Adrian Romano, the good and the bad, the light and the darkness, all of it. Elena took his hand, pressed it to her stomach where Lucian moved beneath the surface. And I'm staying. Not because I'm trapped, not because I'm afraid, but because I choose you. I choose us. I choose this family we're building. Adrian's composure shattered. He pulled her into his arms and she felt him shake with emotion he could no longer contain. I love you, he whispered against her hair. I've loved you since the moment you told me my art collection was pretentious garbage. I'll love you until the day I die. And I will spend every day of my life proving that your choice wasn't a mistake. They stood wrapped together as the city transitioned from day to night, as their son grew strong and healthy between them, as their future unfurled with possibility and promise. And for the first time since running away 3 months ago, Elena felt absolutely certain she was exactly where she belonged. Summer descended on Manhattan with the kind of heat that made the pavement shimmer and the city pulse with restless energy. Elena's pregnancy progressed into the 3rd trimester, her body transforming in ways that fascinated and terrified her in equal measure. At 32 weeks, she felt perpetually off balance. Her center of gravity shifted by the growing weight of their son. Adrian had become impossibly more protective, if such a thing were possible. He worked from home now, converting his study into a command center so he could manage his empire without leaving her side. Marcus handled the field operations while Adrian orchestrated everything from behind mahogany and monitors, his eyes constantly tracking Elena's movements through the penthouse. I can still walk by myself, Elena said one afternoon, batting away his offered hand as she navigated from the bedroom to the kitchen. I'm pregnant, not fragile. You're carrying the most precious thing in my world. That makes you both. But Adrian stepped back, giving her space while remaining close enough to catch her if needed. Dr. Reeves said you should be resting more. Dr. Reeves says a lot of things. Doesn't mean I have to follow all of them. Elena lowered herself onto the sofa with less grace than she would have liked. I'm going stir-crazy, Adrian. I love this penthouse, but I feel like I'm in a beautiful prison. His expression darkened. Is that what this is to you? Still? No. That came out wrong. She reached for his hand, pulling him down beside her. I just mean, I need to do something other than wait. Something that makes me feel useful. You're growing our son. That's the most important thing you could possibly be doing. I know. But I'm also still me. Still the woman who has a brain and opinions and needs that go beyond prenatal vitamins and nursery colors. Elena shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. What if I want to be involved in the legitimate businesses? The real estate, the restaurants, the parts of your empire that don't require moral compromise. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. You want to work with me? I want to understand what our son will inherit. Want to help shape it into something he can be proud of. She met his gaze steadily. You said you were building something better. Let me help you build it. The smile that crossed his face was genuine, unguarded. I've been waiting for you to ask. I have a project I think you'd be perfect for. He pulled up files on his tablet, plans for a community center in one of the neighborhoods his family had historically controlled through fear and extortion. The proposal was surprisingly comprehensive, focusing on job training, youth programs, and family services. This is where I grew up, Adrian said quietly, showing her photos of rundown buildings and poverty-stricken blocks. My grandfather started here, built his empire by taking from people who had nothing. I want to give something back, create opportunities instead of just taking them. Elena studied the plans, seeing the vision beneath the architectural drawings. This is incredible. When do you start? When you tell me it's good enough, that it's the kind of legacy you want our son to inherit. His voice was rough with emotion. I need you to believe in this, Elena, to believe that I'm not just playing at redemption. I believe in you, in us. She kissed him softly. And I want to be part of this. Help design the programs, work with the community. Make sure this actually helps people instead of just being a tax write-off. It's going to put you in the public eye. People will have opinions about Adrian Romano's pregnant girlfriend getting involved in charity work. Let them talk. I'm tired of hiding. Elena's hand settled on her stomach. Lucian is going to grow up knowing his mother wasn't afraid to stand beside his father, that she chose to stay and fight for something better instead of running away. Adrian pulled her close as her belly would allow, and pressed his forehead to hers. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. She felt Lucian kick against her ribs, hard enough to make her wince. And apparently he agrees. They spent the afternoon planning, Adrian walking her through the details of the community center project, while Elena contributed ideas about family outreach and educational programs. It felt right, working together towards something constructive. Something that had nothing to do with territory or power and everything to do with actually helping people. We'll need local buy-in, Elena said, making notes on her own tablet. People aren't going to trust this if it looks like you're just trying to clean up your image. It has to be real, sustainable. Which is why I want you to be the face of it, not me. Adrian's expression was serious. They'll trust you. Someone who chose to be here instead of someone born into it. Someone who sees them as people instead of assets. That's a lot of pressure. You can handle it. You've handled everything else I've thrown at you. His hand covered hers. Besides, you'll have me backing you up, every step. The conversation was interrupted by Marcus appearing in the doorway, his expression tense. Boss, we have a situation. One of the warehouses on the east side. There's been a break-in. Adrian's entire demeanor shifted, the businessman replaced by the crime lord in a heartbeat. What was taken? Nothing yet. Silent alarm triggered, but the intruders are still inside. Could be random theft, or could be someone testing our security. Marcus glanced at Elena. I've already doubled security here. You're safe. I'm going, Adrian said, already standing. Like hell you are. Elena struggled to her feet. You said you were done with field work, that you'd let your people handle. This is my warehouse. My responsibility. His jaw was set. Marcus will stay with you. I'll take Luca and the team. Adrian, please. Fear clawed up her throat. What if it's a trap? What if someone's trying to draw you out? Then they'll learn I don't come unprepared. He crossed to her, his hands framing her face. I'll be careful. I'll be smart. And I'll be back before you know it. You promised me. No unnecessary risks. No putting yourself in danger when you have a family waiting for you. And I'm not. I'm protecting what's mine. There's a difference. His lips brushed her forehead. Trust me, Elena, please. She wanted to argue, wanted to forbid him from leaving, but she saw the resolve in his eyes and knew it would be futile. This was part of who he was, the protector, the leader, the man who faced threats head-on instead of cowering behind others. Come back to us, she whispered. That's all I ask. Always. He kissed her once, hard and fierce, then pulled away. Marcus, you don't leave her side. I don't care if the whole city burns. You stay with her and our son. Yes, boss. Adrian was gone in a whirl of motion, taking 3 other men with him and leaving the penthouse feeling cavernous and empty. Elena stood frozen, her hand pressed to her stomach, while fear coiled in her chest like a living thing. He'll be fine, Miss Elena, Marcus said quietly. Boss knows what he's doing. That's what I'm afraid of. She moved to the windows, watching the city sprawl below. What if knowing what he's doing gets him killed? Then he dies protecting what he loves. That's all any of us can hope for. Marcus settled into a chair where he could watch both Elena and the elevator. But he won't die. He's too stubborn for that. And he has too much to come home to. The minutes crawled past with agonizing slowness. Elena tried to read, to watch television, to do anything that would quiet the anxiety screaming through her nervous system. Nothing worked. She paced the penthouse, tracking the same paths over and over, while Marcus watched with patient understanding. At 8:47 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. Situation handled. Everyone safe. Coming home. The relief was so intense it nearly dropped her to her knees. Elena sank onto the sofa, tears streaming down her face while Lucian kicked and rolled as if sensing her distress. See? Marcus's smile was gentle. Stubborn. Adrian returned 40 minutes later, unharmed, but with a darkness in his eyes that spoke of violence witnessed or committed. He swept Elena into his arms the moment he crossed the threshold, holding her with a desperation that betrayed his controlled exterior. What happened? Elena asked against his chest. Random thieves. Teenagers looking for anything they could sell. We caught them, called their parents, and sent them home with a warning. His voice was flat. No bloodshed, no arrests, just scared kids who made a stupid mistake. You let them go? I gave them a choice. Work off the debt at the community center when it opens, or face charges. They chose the center. Adrian pulled back to look at her. See? I'm learning. Mercy over murder. Second chances over bullets. Elena studied his face, seeing the truth beneath the words. But you wanted to hurt them, for making you leave me. Yes, every instinct I have screamed to make an example of them, to show the city what happens when you touch what's mine. His jaw clenched. But then I thought about Lucian, about what kind of man I want his father to be, and I chose differently. I'm proud of you. And she was, terrified and proud, and so deeply in love with this complicated, dangerous man who was fighting his own nature for their family. They spent the evening tangled together on the sofa, Adrian's hand never leaving her stomach, both of them seeking comfort in proximity and touch. The fear of loss lingered, a reminder of how fragile their happiness was, how quickly everything could shatter. I'm transferring more operations to Marcus, Adrian said quietly, reducing my direct involvement in anything that requires field work. He's earned my trust, and you're right, I can't keep putting myself at risk. Not when I have you both waiting for me. Thank you. Elena kissed his jaw. I know that's hard for you, giving up control. Everything about loving you is hard. You make me question every instinct, every choice, every part of who I've always been. His smile was wry. But it's the best kind of hard, the kind that makes me better. The weeks that followed brought a new rhythm to their lives. Adrian did reduce his field presence, delegating more to Marcus and his other trusted lieutenants. He spent his days building legitimate businesses and his nights planning for Lucian's arrival with obsessive detail. The nursery was completed, a perfect blend of Elena's calming blues and Adrian's insistence on warmth and light. They'd compromised on everything from the crib to the mobile, creating a space that felt safe and loved. At 36 weeks, Dr. Reeves declared Elena ready for labor at any time. The word sent Adrian into a controlled panic, double-checking hospital bags, reviewing emergency protocols, and making sure every possible scenario had a contingency plan. You know, we can't actually plan for everything, Elena said, watching him review medical files for the third time. Birth is unpredictable. I can try. His expression was tense. I need to know you'll both be safe, that nothing will go wrong. Adrian? She took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. I'm going to be fine. Lucian is going to be fine. Dr. Reeves is the best. The hospital is on standby, and you've prepared for everything humanly possible. Now you need to breathe and trust that the universe isn't going to take this away from us. The universe takes things away all the time, without warning, without mercy. Then we'll face it together, like we've faced everything else. Elena pressed his hand to her stomach. Feel that? He's strong, healthy, ready to meet his completely paranoid father. Despite himself, Adrian smiled. I'm not paranoid, I'm thorough. You're both, and I love you anyway. They made love that night with careful tenderness, Adrian's hands worshipful on her transformed body, both of them acutely aware that these might be their last moments alone before becoming three. It was sweet and intense, a reaffirmation of everything they'd built and everything still to come. At 3:47 a.m. on a sweltering August night, Elena woke to wetness and a cramping sensation that stole her breath. Adrian! She shook his shoulder, her voice tight. I think my water just broke. He was awake instantly, moving with military precision. Are you having contractions? I don't know. Maybe. It hurts. Another wave of cramping made her gasp. Okay, we're good. This is fine. We planned for this. But his hand shook as he helped her sit up, as he grabbed the hospital bag they'd kept packed for weeks. Marcus, we need the car. Now! Within minutes, the penthouse was controlled chaos. Marcus had the car running, Doctor. Reeves was on the phone giving instructions, and Adrian was dressed and ready while still looking absolutely terrified. The ride to the hospital was a blur of contractions, and Adrian's steady voice counting her through each one, his hand gripping hers with bruising force. They'd arranged for the entire top floor of the private wing, with Dr. Reeves and a full team standing by. Labor progressed with frightening speed. Elena had heard stories of prolonged births, of hours spent waiting. But Lucian apparently had his father's impatience. Within 3 hours of arriving, she was fully dilated, and the pain was indescribable. I can't do this, she gasped between contractions. It's too much. I can't. Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know. Adrian was beside her, his face pale but his voice steady. You ran from me and survived 3 months alone. You stood up to Valeria Conti. You chose to love a monster and make him better. You can do anything, Elena. Anything. Easy for you to say. You're not being ripped apart. If I could take this pain for you, I would. In a heartbeat. I would give anything. His voice broke. Another contraction hit, and Dr. Reeves's calm voice cut through the haze. Elena, I need you to push. Now. She pushed, screaming through the pain while Adrian held her hand and whispered encouragement she barely heard. The world narrowed to pressure and burning and the overwhelming need to get this baby out of her body. Again, Doctor, Reeves commanded. He's almost here! One more push! Elena bore down with everything she had, and suddenly the pressure released. A thin wail filled the room, and she collapsed back against the pillows, gasping and crying, and overwhelmed by the sound of her son's first breath. It's a boy, Dr. Reeves said unnecessarily, already working to clean and assess the baby. 10 fingers, 10 toes, absolutely perfect. Adrian stood frozen, staring at the squirming, crying bundle being wrapped in soft blankets. His face had gone chalk white, his eyes wide with something that looked like terror and wonder mixed in equal parts. Do you want to hold your son? Dr. Reeves asked gently. He nodded mutely, and she placed Lucian in his arms. The baby was tiny against Adrian's chest, red-faced and furious at being evicted from his warm home. But when Adrian looked down at him, when their eyes met for the first time, something fundamental shifted in the universe. Hello, little one, Adrian whispered, his voice wrecked with emotion. I'm your father, and I promise you, I swear to you, I will spend every day of my life making sure you're safe and loved and free to be whoever you want to be. Lucian's crying quieted, as if recognizing the voice that had spoken to him through skin and muscle for months. His tiny hand wrapped around Adrian's finger with surprising strength. And Adrian Romano, the man who commanded an empire, who'd killed without hesitation, who'd built his life on violence and power, broke down completely. Tears streamed down his face as he held his son, his shoulders shaking with sobs he couldn't control. He's perfect, Adrian managed. Elena, he's so perfect. Look at him. Look at... Through her own tears, Elena watched the two most important people in her world meet for the first time. Bring him here. Let me see our son. Adrian carried Lucian to her bedside with exaggerated care, as if the baby were made of spun glass. When he placed Lucian in Elena's arms, she felt her heart expand in ways she hadn't known were possible. This was her son. Their son. The product of everything they'd survived and overcome. Lucian had Adrian's eyes, those devastating amber eyes that had first captivated her. But his tiny features held echoes of Elena too, in the shape of his nose and the curve of his mouth. Hello, Lucian, she whispered. We've been waiting for you. The baby gazed up at her with unfocused eyes, and Elena felt the last of her reservations crumble. This was right. This family, this life, this impossible love built from darkness and choice. All of it was exactly right. Adrian perched on the edge of the hospital bed, one arm around Elena, and the other hand gently touching Lucian's impossibly soft cheek. Thank you, he said roughly. For him. For giving me this. For believing I could be someone worth building a family with. You are. You already were. You just needed to see it yourself. Elena leaned into his strength, exhausted and euphoric and so deeply content. We did it. We made this beautiful, perfect person. You did most of the work, Adrian said with a shaky laugh. I just held your hand and tried not to pass out. You were perfect. Steady when I needed you to be. She kissed Lucian's forehead, breathing in that newborn scent that was already addictive. Our family. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped together around their son, while outside the hospital room, Marcus and Rosa and a handful of Adrian's most trusted men kept watch. The Romano family had grown by one tiny person, who already commanded more loyalty and love than any empire could buy. Later, when Elena had been moved to a private recovery room and Lucian slept in a bassinet beside the bed, Adrian stood at the window overlooking Manhattan. The city was waking up, sunrise painting the buildings gold and amber. I used to think power was everything, he said quietly. That if I was strong enough, ruthless enough, I could control my world completely, make myself untouchable. Elena watched him from the bed, seeing the vulnerability in his posture. And now? Now I realize that real power is holding something so precious that losing it would destroy you, and choosing to protect it anyway. He turned to face her. You and Lucian, you're my weakness and my strength, my greatest vulnerability and my most powerful motivation. Without you, I'm just a criminal. With you, I have a reason to be better. You're already better. You proved that. Elena gestured to their sleeping son. He's the proof. Every choice you made to get here, every moment you chose mercy over murder, restraint over revenge. That's the man you are, Adrian, not the monster you used to be. I'm still learning how to be that man, how to control the darkness instead of feeding it. He crossed back to the bed, settling beside her carefully. But I'll keep learning. For him. For you. For the family we're building. We'll learn together, make mistakes together, figure out how to raise a good man together. Elena took his hand. That's what families do. Lucian stirred in his bassinet, making small sounds that weren't quite crying but suggested he might be heading that direction. Adrian was up immediately, lifting his son with surprising confidence for someone who'd never held a baby before yesterday. Hey, little man. What's wrong? Adrian cradled Lucian against his chest, swaying gently. Hungry? Tired? Just want to make sure we're paying attention. He's probably hungry. Dr. Reeves said every 2 to 3 hours. Elena held out her arms. Bring him here. She watched Adrian's face as he handed over their son, seeing the reluctance to let go even for a moment. This man who'd once commanded with absolute authority was now completely at the mercy of an 8-pound baby. It was adorable and terrifying in equal measure. Lucian latched on immediately, and Elena felt the strange pull and tug that would become their new normal. Adrian sat beside them, his hand resting on her shoulder, watching with fascination as his son nursed. I never thought I'd have this, he admitted. A family. Someone to come home to who loved me not for what I could do for them, but just for me. The broken, damaged parts included. You're not broken. You're just complicated. Elena smiled up at him. And I love every complicated, dangerous, tender part of you, even the parts that drive me crazy. Especially those parts? Especially those. They sat in comfortable silence while Lucian ate. The three of them cocooned in their own small world. Outside, the city roared and shifted, power changed hands, and empires rose and fell. But in this room, none of that mattered. What mattered was this moment, this family, this choice they'd made to build something beautiful from the wreckage of fear and violence. When Lucian finished eating and fell back asleep, Adrian took him again, clearly unwilling to put his son down. He paced the room with Lucian against his shoulder, murmuring soft words Elena couldn't quite hear. You're going to spoil him, she said, fighting to keep her eyes open. That's my prerogative as his father, spoiling him rotten while you teach him to be good. Adrian's smile was soft. We'll balance each other out. We'd better. Otherwise we're raising a tiny tyrant. But Elena's heart swelled watching them together, this unlikely father-son pair. She drifted off to sleep listening to Adrian's low voice telling Lucian stories about the city beyond the windows, about the empire he would inherit, about the mother who had saved them both from darkness. And in her dreams, Elena saw their future unfold. Not perfect, never perfect, but real and solid and built on a foundation of choices made deliberately, with full knowledge of the consequences. She'd chosen to stay, chosen to love, chosen to build a family with a dangerous man who was learning to be gentle. And that choice, she knew with absolute certainty, was the best one she'd ever made. The first weeks of Lucian's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and overwhelming love. Elena had read about the adjustment period, had prepared herself intellectually for the chaos of new parenthood, but nothing could have truly readied her for the reality of caring for a tiny human who demanded everything while giving back only the occasional heart-stopping smile. Adrian, for his part, became a different person entirely. The crime lord who'd once commanded with cold efficiency now panicked over every sneeze, every cry, every minor variation in Lucian's routine. He read parenting books with the same intensity he'd once devoted to territory maps, took copious notes during Dr. Reeves's visits, and personally vetted every product that came near his son. He's fine, Adrian, Elena said for the 100th time, watching him hover over Lucian's crib at 2 in the morning. He's just sleeping, like he's supposed to. But he's so still. How do we know he's breathing? Adrian's hand hovered over their son's chest, not quite touching. Because we can see him breathing, and because he was breathing 5 minutes ago when you checked, and 5 minutes before that. Elena pulled him away from the crib gently but firmly. You need sleep. We both do. I can't sleep. What if something happens and I'm not awake to... Then we wake up and handle it together, like we've handled everything else. She guided him back to bed, pushing him down onto the mattress. Lucian is healthy, the monitors are working, Rosa is down the hall, and you're going to make yourself sick if you don't rest. Adrian lay back, pulling Elena against his chest. I just keep thinking about how fragile he is. How many things could go wrong. How easily I could lose him. Lose both of you. You won't. We're not going anywhere. We're not... Elena pressed her ear to his heart, listening to the steady rhythm that had become her anchor. We're your family, Adrian, and families stick together, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. They dozed fitfully, waking every few hours when Lucian demanded food or comfort or simply wanted to be held. It was exhausting and beautiful and exactly what Elena had needed without knowing it. This proof that they could build something normal from the ashes of their chaotic beginning. When Lucian was 6 weeks old, the community center project reached completion. The building stood transformed from the rundown shell it had been into something bright and welcoming, with classrooms and workshop spaces and a commercial kitchen for job training programs. Adrian had poured resources into it with the same obsessive attention he devoted to everything. But he'd also listened to Elena's input, incorporating her ideas about family services and educational support. The grand opening was scheduled for a Saturday in late September, when the summer heat had finally broken and Manhattan felt almost livable again. Adrian wanted to attend, wanted to see the culmination of months of work, but he was terrified to bring Lucian into public, to expose his son to potential threats. We can't hide him forever, Elena said, dressing Lucian in the tiny outfit Rosa had picked out, soft blue cotton that matched his eyes. At some point, people need to know he exists, that he's part of your life. I know, I just thought we'd have more time. Adrian adjusted his tie in the mirror, his movements tense. The moment we bring him out there, he becomes a target, leverage against me. He's already leverage. Anyone who wants to hurt you knows about him by now. Elena lifted Lucian from his changing table, supporting his wobbly head. But they also know that hurting him means facing your wrath. That's protection in its own way. Not enough protection. Nothing is enough. But Adrian's expression softened when Lucian made a small sound, his tiny fist waving in the air. Look at him. He has no idea the world he's been born into. Then we make sure it's a world worth living in, starting with this center. Starting with showing people that Adrian Romano is more than just a crime lord. He's a father, a partner, someone trying to build something better. Elena handed Lucian to Adrian. Hold your son and trust that we're doing the right thing. The ride to the community center was tense, despite Marcus's assurances that they'd swept the entire area, that security was tighter than the presidential detail. Adrian held Lucian the entire drive, his arms protective bands around their son, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. When they arrived, a small crowd had already gathered. Local residents, city officials, a handful of reporters that Adrian's publicity team had approved. Elena saw curiosity in their faces, wariness too. They knew who Adrian Romano was, what he represented. But they'd also seen the transformation of this building, the jobs created during construction, the promise of resources their community desperately needed. A woman in her 50s approached as they exited the SUV. Maria Sanchez, the community organizer Elena had been working with for weeks. Her eyes widened when she saw the baby in Adrian's arms. Is this Lucian? Maria's smile was genuine, warm. He's beautiful. Looks just like his father. Thank you. Adrian's posture relaxed fractionally at the kindness in her voice. Elena speaks highly of you, Maria. Says you've been instrumental in getting community buy-in. Your partner has been the real hero here. She listened to what we needed instead of just assuming she knew better. Maria's gaze cut to Elena with respect. We've had a lot of people promise help over the years, not many deliver. This, she gestured to the building, this is real. This is going to change lives. They moved through the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Adrian giving a brief speech about legacy and redemption that was surprisingly heartfelt. Then Elena spoke, her voice carrying across the crowd as she explained the programs they'd developed, the partnerships with local schools and businesses, the commitment to hiring from within the community. This isn't charity, Elena said clearly. This is investment in your families, your children, your futures. Mr. Romano and I believe that everyone deserves a second chance, that where you come from doesn't have to determine where you go. And we're putting our resources where our beliefs are. Applause rippled through the crowd, genuine and sustained. Elena saw skepticism still lingering in some faces, but also hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe things could actually be different. After the speeches, they toured the facility, Lucian still cradled in Adrian's arms. Elena watched him interact with the community members, saw how holding his son changed his demeanor, made him more approachable, more human. People who might have been intimidated by Adrian Romano the crime lord found themselves charmed by Adrian Romano the nervous new father. "How old is he?" a young mother asked, her own toddler clinging to her leg. 6 weeks tomorrow. Adrian adjusted Lucian's position with practiced care. "He's my first. I'm still figuring out this whole parenting thing. Aren't we all?" The woman laughed. "It gets easier and harder, but mostly easier." They talked for a few minutes about sleep schedules and feeding routines, this surreal moment where Manhattan's most dangerous man commiserated with a single mother about diaper rash. Elena felt her heart swell watching them, seeing the future they were building take shape in real time. Later, as they prepared to leave, a teenage boy approached, one of the kids from the warehouse break-in months ago. He looked nervous but determined. "Mr. Romano, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the chance to work here instead of—" He trailed off, glancing around. "Instead of what I deserved." Adrian studied him for a long moment. "What's your name?" "Carlos. Carlos Martinez." "How old are you, Carlos?" 16. "You made a mistake, a stupid one, but just a mistake." Adrian shifted Lucian to one arm, extending his hand to the boy. "You're working it off with honest labor, learning skills that will serve you for life. That's not mercy, Carlos. That's good business. I'd rather have you working for me legitimately than forcing you into a system that would destroy your future." Carlos shook his hand, eyes wide with something that looked like worship. "I won't let you down, sir. See that you don't. I have a son now. I need to know the world he's growing up in has men who keep their word." Adrian's smile was slight but genuine. "Make me proud, Carlos." The boy left with purpose in his stride, and Elena leaned against Adrian's shoulder. "That was perfect. Exactly the right thing to say." "I meant it. I do need men who keep their word, men who see honor as something other than violence." Adrian pressed a kiss to Lucian's forehead. "I'm building an army of people who owe me loyalty not because they fear me, but because I gave them something real, something worth protecting." That's how you change the world, one person at a time. That's how you change me, one choice at a time. He met her gaze. "Thank you for pushing me to do this, for showing me there's another way." They drove home as the sun set over Manhattan, painting the city in shades of amber and gold. Lucian slept peacefully through the ride, already accustomed to the constant motion of their lives. Elena watched Adrian watch their son, and felt the rightness of this moment settle deep in her bones. The weeks that followed brought a new rhythm to their existence. The community center thrived, enrollment exceeding expectations, local news covering the success story of redemption and investment. Adrian's legitimate businesses expanded while his criminal operations shrank, territory handed off to trusted lieutenants with instructions for gradual transition to legal enterprise. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't complete. But it was progress, measurable and real. At 3 months old, Lucian began to show his personality. Stubborn like his father, curious like his mother, with a smile that could melt the coldest heart. He laughed when Adrian made ridiculous faces, grabbed at Elena's hair with surprising strength, and commanded the household with the imperious authority of someone born to rule. "He's going to be trouble," Rosa said fondly, watching Lucian charm Marcus into playing peekaboo for the 15th time. "Just like his father." Hopefully with better judgment, Elena replied, though she was smiling, and his mother's common sense. You mean my devastating good looks and tactical brilliance? Adrian appeared from his study, immediately reaching for his son. Come here, little dictator. Let's give Uncle Marcus a break. Marcus surrendered Lucian with visible relief, though Elena saw the affection in his eyes. Adrian's entire team had been transformed by Lucian's arrival, these hard men going soft around a baby who couldn't even hold up his own head yet. December arrived with the first snow, blanketing Manhattan in white, that would quickly turn to gray slush. Elena stood on the balcony with Lucian bundled in her arms, showing him the city transformed. Look, she whispered, that's where you were born, where your father built an empire, where we learned that love is stronger than fear. Lucian gazed up at her with those amber eyes, so like Adrian's, and made a sound that might have been agreement, or might have been hunger. Elena chose to believe it was agreement. Elena, Adrian's voice came from behind her. Come inside, you'll both freeze. She turned to find him watching them with an expression she'd learned to recognize. Love mixed with fear, possessiveness tempered by reverence. He'd never quite gotten over the terror that they might disappear, that this happiness might be snatched away. We're fine, just showing him the snow. But she moved back inside, letting Adrian wrap them both in his warmth. He's going to love winter, I can already tell. He's going to love whatever you teach him to love. You're his compass. Adrian's hand cupped her face. You're both my compass. Without you, I'm just lost in the dark. Then it's a good thing we're not going anywhere. Elena kissed him softly, careful not to jostle Lucian between them. You're stuck with us, Romano, for life. That's the best deal I've ever made. They spent Christmas quietly, just the three of them and Rosa. Adrian had wanted to shower Lucian with extravagant gifts, but Elena had vetoed most of them in favor of simple toys and soft books. Their son was 4 months old. He didn't need a miniature Mercedes or a custom-made crib that cost more than most cars. What Lucian needed was love and security and parents who chose each other every day, even when it was hard. On New Year's Eve, they stood on the balcony again, Lucian asleep in Adrian's arms while fireworks exploded across the Manhattan skyline. Elena leaned into Adrian's side, watching the city celebrate the arrival of a new year. What do you want for this year? Adrian asked quietly. What can I give you that you don't already have? Nothing. This is everything. Elena gestured to encompass the three of them, their family. A year ago, I was hiding in a diner, terrified and alone. Now I'm here, with you, with our son, building something real, something that matters. A year ago, I was hunting for you like a man possessed, thinking if I could just find you, if I could just bring you back, everything would be okay. Adrian's arms tightened around Lucian. I didn't understand that bringing you back wasn't enough. I had to become someone worth staying for. You did that. You are that. Elena turned in his arms, looking up at the man who transformed himself for love. I'm proud of you, Adrian. Of us. Of what we've built together. I'm still building, still learning how to be the man you need, the father Lucian deserves. He kissed her forehead. But I'll keep trying, for as long as you'll let me. Forever then, because I'm not letting you go. Elena smiled. You're mine, Adrian Romano. Just like I'm yours. We claimed each other, remember? Best decision I ever made. The fireworks reached their crescendo, the sky exploding in color and light, while Manhattan roared its approval of another year survived. Another year begun. And in that moment, with their son sleeping peacefully and their city spread below them in all its chaotic glory, Elena felt complete. She'd run from Adrian once, terrified of the darkness he represented, but she'd learned that darkness could be transformed, that monsters could choose to be men, that love was powerful enough to rewrite destinies. Adrian had been her captor, then her protector. Now he was her partner, her equal, the father of her child. He would always carry shadows. That was the nature of who he was, the world he'd been born into. But he'd learned to control those shadows instead of being controlled by them, to use his power for building instead of destroying. And that was enough. More than enough. Spring arrived with the promise of renewal, bringing warmth back to the city and color to the parks. Lucian turned 6 months old, sitting up on his own, grabbing everything within reach, laughing at the slightest provocation. He was pure joy wrapped in soft skin and amber eyes, a constant reminder of why they'd fought so hard to build this life. The community center had expanded its programs, serving hundreds of families. Adrian had quietly funded 3 more similar facilities in other neighborhoods, each one managed by local leaders, each one focused on sustainable investment rather than temporary charity. His criminal empire continued to shrink while his legitimate businesses flourished, creating jobs and opportunities that didn't require moral compromise. "You're becoming respectable," Elena teased one afternoon, watching him review quarterly reports from the various community programs. "Soon, you'll be invited to charity galas and fundraising dinners." "I already get invited to those, I just never went because they were boring." Adrian set down his tablet, pulling her onto his lap. "But if you want to go, we can. Show the world what we've built together. I want people to see that change is possible, that someone with your history can choose differently and mean it." Elena traced his jaw. "You're proof that redemption isn't just a fantasy. I'm proof that loving the right woman can save even the most lost soul." He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "You saved me, Elena. Every day, you saved me." "We saved each other." She leaned her forehead against his. "I was so lost when I ran, terrified and alone and convinced that loving you meant losing myself. But I learned that loving you meant finding the strongest version of myself. The woman who could stand beside you and demand better. Who could build a family from chaos." Lucian's babbling from the nursery monitor interrupted them, his sounds escalating toward crying. Adrian was up immediately, his protective instincts never far from the surface. "I'll get him," Elena said, but Adrian was already moving. "We'll both go. I want to see his face when he wakes up. That moment when he recognizes us and smiles." Adrian held out his hand. "Come on, our son needs us." They walked together to the nursery, this beautiful room they'd created filled with soft colors and gentle light. Lucian stood in his crib, holding the rails with chubby fists, his face scrunched up with pre-cry frustration. The moment he saw them, his expression transformed. Pure joy spread across his features, and he bounced on unsteady legs, babbling excitedly. "Hey, little man." Adrian lifted him from the crib, cradling him close. "Did you have a good nap?" Lucian grabbed Adrian's face with both hands, laughing as if this were the funniest thing in the world. Then he turned to Elena, reaching for her with grabby hands and imperious sounds. I know. You want Mama too." Adrian transferred Lucian to Elena, and their son immediately settled against her chest, content now that both parents were present. This was their life now, simple moments of family connection, laughter and tears, and the overwhelming responsibility of raising a tiny human. It was harder than anything Elena had ever done, and more rewarding than she'd ever imagined. "I have something for you," Adrian said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Elena's breath caught. "Adrian, it's not what you think." "Well, it is, but—" He opened the box to reveal a ring. Not the massive diamond she might have expected, but something more meaningful. A simple platinum band engraved with 3 words. Family, choice, forever. "I don't need a ring to know we're committed," Elena said, though her eyes were filling with tears. "I know, but I need you to have it anyway, as a reminder that this isn't obligation or circumstance or some transactional arrangement." Adrian took the ring from the box, holding it up. "This is me asking you to marry me, Elena Cross. To stand beside me, not because you're trapped, but because you choose it. Because we're building something real and permanent. Because I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone, and I want the world to know you're mine and I'm yours." Lucian grabbed at the ring, fascinated by the way it caught the light. Elena laughed through her tears, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "Yes. Of course, yes." She held out her hand, letting Adrian slide the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for this moment. "I choose you, Adrian Romano. I choose this family. I choose this life we're building together." He kissed her then, careful not to crush Lucian between them, pouring everything he felt into that connection. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying, and Lucian was looking at them with the solemn confusion of a baby who didn't understand but sensed something important was happening. "We're getting married, little one," Adrian told his son. "Your mother is making an honest man out of me. Oh, your father is making grand romantic gestures, Elena countered. And we're going to be a family, officially, legally, forever. They spent the evening planning a small ceremony, nothing ostentatious, just close friends and family in the penthouse overlooking the city that had witnessed their entire journey. Rosa cried when they told her, immediately launching into plans for food and flowers and all the details Elena couldn't care less about. What mattered was the commitment, the choice to bind their lives together not out of fear or necessity, but because they'd fought for this love and earned it through 1,000 small decisions to choose mercy over violence, trust over fear, partnership over possession. The wedding took place 3 months later, on a perfect June evening when the sunset painted everything gold. Lucian, now 9 months old and crawling everywhere, served as the world's most adorable ring bearer with Marcus's help. Rosa cried through the entire ceremony. Marcus pretended not to, though Elena saw him wipe his eyes when he thought no one was looking. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, speaking truths about darkness and light, about running and staying, about the power of choosing love even when it terrified you. I was a monster when I met you, Adrian said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I took what I wanted and destroyed what threatened me. You could have run forever, should have run forever. But you stayed. You looked at the worst parts of me and demanded I become better. You gave me a son and showed me what real power looks like. Not the power to hurt, but the power to heal, to build, to transform. I promised to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift, to choose mercy when my instincts scream for violence, to build when it would be easier to destroy, to love you and our son with everything I am and everything I'm becoming. Elena's turn came, and she had to take a breath to steady herself. I ran from you because I was terrified, not of you, but of how much I loved you, of what loving you might cost me. But I learned that the real cost was in running, in choosing fear over faith. You've spent 9 months proving that love can transform even the darkest soul, that a man who once killed without hesitation can learn to show mercy, that a criminal can become a father, a partner, a builder of communities. I promise to stand beside you, to call you on your mistakes and celebrate your victories, to raise our son to be better than both of us, to choose you every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. When they kissed to seal their vows, Lucian let out a delighted shriek, as if he understood that something important had just happened. The small gathering applauded, and Elena felt Adrian smile against her lips. Mrs. Romano, he whispered. Mrs. Cross Romano, she corrected. I'm keeping my name, too. Of course you are. His laugh was pure joy. I wouldn't expect anything less. The reception was intimate and perfect, with food Rosa had been preparing for days and music that ranged from classical to ridiculous. Adrian danced with Elena while Rosa held Lucian, the three of them swaying together to a jazz standard that made Elena's heart ache with happiness. I love you, Adrian said into her hair, more than empires, more than power, more than my own life. I love you too, exactly as you are, darkness and light together. Elena pulled back to look at him. We did it. We built something real. We built everything. Later, after the guests had left and Lucian was sleeping soundly in his crib, they stood on the balcony overlooking Manhattan. The city glittered below them, alive and chaotic and endlessly fascinating. This place had witnessed their entire journey, from Elena's terrified flight to Adrian's relentless pursuit, from Valeria's scheming to Lucian's birth, from war to peace to love. Do you regret any of it? Adrian asked quietly. The pain, the fear, the running? Elena considered the question seriously, thinking about those 3 months in Brooklyn, the terror of being found, the overwhelming relief when she realized Adrian had been protecting her all along. No, she said finally. I don't regret any of it, because all of it led here, to us, to Lucian, to this family we've built from impossible choices. She turned to face him. You? I regret that I hurt you, that my actions drove you away in the first place. Adrian's hand found hers. But I don't regret the journey, because it taught me that I could change, that I could choose to be better, that love was stronger than fear or power or violence. And now? Now I keep choosing, every day, to be the man you need, the father Lucian deserves. to build instead of destroy. His smile was soft. It's the easiest and hardest thing I've ever done. They stood wrapped together while the city breathed below them, while their son slept peacefully inside, while their future stretched out with possibility and promise. Elena thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, running, terrified, convinced that loving Adrian Romano meant losing herself. She'd been wrong. Loving Adrian had meant finding herself, finding the strength to demand better, to stand firm, to build a family from chaos and choice. Years would pass. Lucian would grow, would learn to walk and talk, and eventually understand the complicated legacy his parents were building for him. The community centers would multiply. Adrian's criminal empire would continue its transformation into something legitimate and lasting. There would be challenges and setbacks, moments when the darkness threatened to resurface, but they would face it all together. Partners, equals, two people who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to, and who kept choosing each other every single day. Because that was what love meant. Not the absence of fear or difficulty, but the decision to stay anyway, to fight for something better, to transform darkness into light through 1,000 small choices that added up to a lifetime. Elena Cross Romano had run from the most dangerous man in New York, and then she'd chosen to return, to stay, to build a family with him. It was the craziest, most reckless, most absolutely right decision she'd ever made, and she would make it again, every day for the rest of her life. The city glittered below them. Their son slept peacefully, and in each other's arms, they'd found the home they'd both been searching for all along. Not in penthouses or power, not in territory or control, but in the simple, extraordinary act of choosing to love completely, fearlessly, and forever.